gin joints in all the towns in all the world. She walks into mine.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
There's no crying in baseball.
You talking to me?
I'm gonna make him an offer again.
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing
Do I
yet.
feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
You can't handle the truth.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hello and welcome back to the Old School Movie Club Old School Movie Club podcast. We're in actual studio, Kevin.
Yeah, I can see you right now.
I know. We're actually sitting across. We actually just finished watching The Shining, and now we're in a real studio. You might notice a difference in mic quality. But yeah, this should be fun.
Yeah.
Kevin, how you doing? I know how you're doing because
we've been hanging out all day.
yeah. So like I
I'm
said,
good.
we just finished 30 minutes ago watching The Shining. It is our movie this week for our Halloween or horror month, whatever you want to call it. Our previous entries in this little month of ours is Evil Dead, and then we had Halloween. And now The Shining was probably the biggest movie, certainly the longest movie, but the biggest movie as far as critical acclaim probably of the movies that we've seen so far. Wouldn't you say?
Of all of the movies we've seen?
For the horror month.
For the horror month? Yeah, so far, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Psycho, which we're seeing next week, definitely rivals that.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of, The Shining is one of those horror films that, especially if you're getting into the genre, everyone wants you to go see. Like, go watch The Shining. And actually, I really liked this movie. There's a lot of things that I want to get into about it, but what was your initial take of the movie? Like, fresh off of watching it, did you like it? Did you not like it?
I did like it. It was extremely weird. Very uneasy.
Very, very weird.
But I really liked it.
So you said it was weird, and I agree with it was totally not what I was expecting.
Because, I mean, how many times did we look over at each other and share these weird glances?
I think that I had the same expression on my face throughout the entire movie where I was just like, hand on my chin, like, what's going on?
There were a lot of times throughout the movie where stuff hadn't been explained yet, and it just felt like you kind of just needed to roll with it, and you're like, all right, that's weird, but sure. Yeah,
so it's really weird in a lot of different ways. It, like you said, it makes you feel uneasy, and that's a lot of the things they make weird to make it feel uneasy, Yeah. Like, just right off the bat, you can tell, like, from the first scene in the movie, is like, oh, this is going to be, the cinematography in this movie is going to be a little different, a little off of what I'm used to, and
right.
It hangs on scenes for long periods of time and just lets you sit there and then fades to another scene. He loves to use the fade in this movie. I mean, every single scene, it just seems like it fades in, fades out, fades in, fades out.
Or the title card with the day or the time would just kind of randomly flash on screen.
Yeah, so like
with no fade.
Yeah, it would just be bam, and it'd say Tuesday. It's like, whoa.
Bam, Thursday. What happened on Wednesday?
Yeah. And Wednesday wasn't that eventful. But, and this movie is just weird plot-wise, too. Like, I think going into this movie, I was expecting so many different things from it. I liked the movie. I like that it went the way it did. It's just, especially with, like, the ending of the movie. You're expecting, like, this giant ending, and then nothing ends up happening. Like, one guy gets killed, and it's just crazy guy, and he ends up dying. Or so we think.
Wow, he did appear to be frozen.
He did appear to be frozen
in the
death.
snow overnight.
I read something that, in the director's cut, the police say that they couldn't find his body and stuff, but the movie that we watched, the version that we watched, it basically just ends with him being frozen in the snow, and that's just the end of the movie. And I was like, when it ended, I was like, wait, that's the end?
That's it?
That's it? But I mean, I still really, really enjoyed the whole way because, I was saying earlier, I kind of had I spent the whole movie in a certain pose, And then I was still on the edge of my seat the entire movie. And I think that's what you're supposed to do, especially from... This is very, very suspenseful, like a suspense thriller here.
Extremely.
Yeah. So what do you think about the weirdness, like the cinematography, all that kind of stuff?
It felt very much like a soap opera.
It did. It had like a weird like tinge to it, like the coloring was a little off, and it was real. It looked really, really real. Yeah,
and then when I say soap opera, I'm thinking more of like how the actors interacted with the camera.
Yeah.
I mean, you had a lot of close-up shots, a lot of what felt like it was breaking the fourth wall, but it was really just talking to
someone off of
someone
camera.
behind the camera,
or talking to themselves because they're just
monologuing.
Being crazy people. And so the cinematography, like we said, it feels like there's a lot of these like sweeping shots where it's following people through doing stuff, and it holds on scenes for really, really long periods of time, especially in the beginning, where you have, he's in that office for like what seemed to be like 10 minutes. I know it wasn't that long, but it just seemed to like...
For that first interview scene?
Yeah, that first interview scene, it just seemed to like drag on. It was so long.
I noticed at one point the guy who runs the hotel during the majority of the year, when he was interviewing Jack, there was one point where the owner of the hotel was talking for about a minute or two, but the camera was on Jack the whole time.
Yeah.
Which was
weird. And you
weird.
just see like the facial expressions of Jack Nicholson.
But it made me wonder if maybe the actor playing the owner of the hotel didn't have the facial expressions that they wanted to match that dialogue.
Yeah. I mean, the facial expressions of Jack Nicholson in this movie, and every movie that he does, he's like amazing at that and just acting without having any words, And he made you, the cinematography and all that stuff helps make you feel uneasy and just how weird everything's going on is. But Jack Nicholson himself, he takes that uneasy feeling through the roof. Just every single scene that he's in, even in the beginning, you kind of just like, is everything all right with this guy? Is he okay? And it slowly gets more and more dramatic and more like emphasized, like just how he makes you every single time he comes in the movie, like after the first half, you're totally uneasy.
Quick note on the cinematography: the very opening of the movie, when you're just watching basically a helicopter shot filming a car driving down the road.
And we know it's a helicopter shot because we saw the shadow of the helicopter.
But even before that, like, you can obviously tell it's a helicopter shot just from the way that the camera's kind of moving. But then if you look in the corner, you actually see the shadow of the helicopter. And we definitely laughed at that.
Yeah, but there's like a thing. That same exact shot nowadays would be done with a drone carrying a camera, following through. It'd be a lot smoother and stuff. And you got to think like they probably only had enough money to do that shot once. Like we only got the helicopter for an hour.
But it was still pretty smooth. I mean, the helicopter went right down next to that car.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think the cinematography is bad. It's just different and weird.
Yeah.
I think some of the editing is very, I don't know. I don't want to say the editing was bad. It's not necessarily bad. The transitions are a little jarring, but I think it's supposed to be that way.
Yeah.
Just to like help that uneasy feeling. Me personally, I don't like when it did all those fading ins in the beginning, and then towards the latter half of the movie, it just does the Tuesday, Thursday, 1 month later, Sunday. It's just weird.
Kind of like our whole thing with this film is nothing was really bad about this film. It's just stuff that was so different from what we
so weird.
Are used to nowadays that it was jarring, but it wasn't bad.
So I was kind of like harped on, or I kind of spoke about Jack Nicholson a little while ago, but what did you think about his performance in this movie? I thought he did an amazing job of just making you feel, like I said, in the latter half of the movie, every single time he was in the scene, you just felt like something might happen. Generally never did, but something might happen. So what did you think about, you said iconic, so kind of, do you want to expand on that a little bit more?
I'm not sure really how to expand anymore.
Well, what were the things about his performance that just made it, you think, iconic?
Jack Nicholson's one of the best character actors I've ever seen when it comes to playing someone psychotic. And, I mean, that's done through his facial expressions, through the tone of his voice, his body movements. I mean, he completely takes on the role of a psychopath.
He did. I mean, he made you believe, and I was like, I would kind of like came out of the movie because, unfortunately, you know, growing up in 90s and 2000s, where Jack Nicholson was still working, he's still working a lot, but we didn't see a lot of his, or at least I didn't. I don't want to speak for you, but I didn't see a lot of his, you know, iconic, as you said, performances of his earlier career. And I say earlier career, but Jack Nicholson was 41 in this movie. But I think it's still early on in his career. Because when did he start acting? Do you know?
I don't.
I don't think it was much before this.
It couldn't have been, maybe 10 to 15 years earlier.
Yeah. But, I mean, this is probably one of his biggest roles he'd ever done. But, I mean, I'm not as used to Jack Nicholson's young performances. Because, I mean, I saw him in movies when he was already kind of getting up there in age. But these, like, young Jack Nicholson performances where you said, like, he uses every part of his body. And we said earlier, like, the facial expressions to, like, convey acting without any lines.
Right.
And you can truly believe that he is going crazy, is like, especially when he's talking to his wife. And what did you think about, like, the supporting actors in this film?
I wasn't too high on Shelley Duvall, who plays the wife, Wendy.
I don't think she was bad. She just didn't fit.
She was fine. She just wasn't up to par with everyone else in the film. The Danny Lloyd, who's the kid who plays Danny in the film, is excellent.
Yeah. Very creepy.
One of the creepiest kids I've ever seen.
Yeah, very creepy.
Ever seen. And
also,
then,
he knows how to ride that big wheel.
Oh, yeah.
Up and down those hallways, man.
You imagine riding your own big wheel through the Overlook Hotel.
When I was watching this movie, I was like, man, I think I would love this job. Especially nowadays, you have so much like internet access. It's like I would watch over a hotel for a winter and like go through the hallways and ride my big wheel around, you know. But
hey, he looked like he was having the time of his life.
I mean, yeah, you don't get that many. You don't get that many more performances because this is really like a 3-man show for the most of the movie. I mean, you've got kind of like where Jack starts hallucinating and, you know, when he's getting introduced, interviewed, and shown around the hotel, you get that. And then you have the chef. I can't remember his last name, but Dick.
Halloran?
Yeah, Halloran. So I guess he's probably the 4th biggest role in the movie, but like he's almost there as a plot device, which is like kind of unfortunate because I felt like he did a pretty good job. And initially, when you see him, you're like, "Oh, this guy's pretty creepy," but he actually turns out to be the good guy in all of this. Yeah,
I mean, he was there for exposition and the fact that he was there to explain to Danny how the shining ability works.
So I wish they expanded on that more because like that's one of the things. And I'll be going, I think this is a mark of a true, like, good film, especially done like this way, a horror film like this. I have so many questions leaving the film that I just want to go online and read about. Like, they kind of brush over the shining ability, but like, so this film also has like a supernatural thing to it, which is kind of weird and not, 100% I wasn't expecting the supernatural element. Like, he can kind of see things and...
Right.
I mean, you kind of expect, you know the twins and stuff like that, which honestly weren't that big of a part of a movie. I mean, the whole story was a guy, a past caretaker, brought his family up there. He had a wife and 2 twin girls, and then he ended up murdering them with the axe. This is a story they tell him at the beginning of the movie.
And there's so much foreshadowing in this movie.
There's a lot of foreshadowing, but... I wasn't expecting the supernatural element. Do you wish they like explained that a little bit more?
No.
You're good with it just being kind of vague. I kind of wish they explained it more, but still, I'm gonna go and research it and find out myself like what actually was going on there. And there's a lot of things they don't explain, and they leave up to your imagination almost.
Yeah. So there are a lot of films that I don't mind questions being unanswered or the, I guess, main point of the movie being left to interpretation. This is one of those. And then Blade Runner 2049, so a recent release, is another one that's just left completely up to interpretation that I was fine with. There are movies where I'm like, give me all the answers. But this one, I don't need the...
Yeah. I'm kind of sad that I went and looked. I was like, okay, what happened in The Shining? I went and looked it up, and I'm not going to... I don't want to...
There you are.
Sorry, my mic died for a second. I don't want to say it on here because I felt a little bit robbed because it's such a simple answer, and I wanted it to be more. And it was just kind of like this is why this... And I would much rather like held to my own devices and kind of like going through my head and like, oh, what if this happened? Like, what if this? Because a big thing in the film, if you haven't seen it before, watch the film first. But a big thing in the film, and maybe it wasn't that big a thing. Maybe it was just like like try to figure this one out. But like the picture at the end where it shows Jack, but underneath him it says 1921, and you're kind of like, wait, what? You're like, I was so confused. I was like, well, he kind of like hints that it feels like he'd been there before. Like he's like, I've heard of deja vu, but this is something else or something like that. And all of his hallucinations, he seems to know them. Yeah. From like that we used to work at the hotel, and it was kind of like.
Well, then after a while, you learn that they're not even hallucinations. Because we saw that Wendy was able to see some of them too.
But maybe she's just hallucinating too.
I don't think it was any hallucinations. I think it was we read an article that said the hotel had the ability to basically bring people back. So I think it was the supernatural element of the hotel bringing those people back. So they were actually there.
See, I just thought they were hallucinating crazy, and now like that thing. So like again, this is a movie that like kind of was like, okay, here's all the puzzle pieces, put them together yourself, and like. I actually like movies like that where they're like, okay, figure it out. Yeah. And they don't, like, you at the initial reaction, you're like, wait a minute, that's all they're going to give me? That's it? And then, like, every once in a while, you're just, like, thinking, like, man, I wonder what, like, and you're just thinking about The Shining, so I think they did their job, you know?
They did. I think last week when we briefly talked about The Shining, I had mentioned that it was an award-winning / nominated film. Yeah. Not quite to the extent that I made it sound. So Scatman Crothers, who played the
great name by the way,
Dick Halloran, he was nominated for a Saturn Award for Best Supporting Actor.
Really?
And then
he's such a small role, though. Yeah, I mean he did a good job, but I wouldn't.
And then you know about the Razzie Awards, right?
Oh yeah, who got the Razzie in this?
So I don't think it won any Razzies. It was nominated. Shelley Duvall was nominated for Worst Actress.
Oh, dang. I don't think she was that bad.
Stanley Kubrick was nominated for Worst Director.
What? People didn't like those fade-ins and fade-outs.
Yeah. Those are the only two.
That's crazy.
At least it didn't win any Razzies.
Would you nominate anyone for a Razzie in this?
No.
I mean, we both said that Duvall wasn't, like, you know, up to par, but I still wouldn't say that she was Razzie-worthy at all.
No, I mean...
She had good moments in the movie still.
Yeah, it's just... I guess it was a weak film then. I don't know how people interpreted it when it came out in 1980, because we weren't around in 1980.
I mean, that's, like, part of the cool thing about this podcast, too, is, like, we watch these films that may or may not have gotten critical acclaim when they first came out, and then somewhere along the way, especially with some of our films like Big Lebowski... Which you didn't like. I ended up liking a lot more. But
well, I mean, I liked Big Lebowski. I wasn't over the moon about it.
Just they get these cult followings. I never thought of The Shining being like that. I thought it was always like a big hit. But now that you said it was like, you know, Stanley Kubrick was nominated for a Razzie, that's crazy.
Yeah, I don't understand it.
I just thought like the directing was a little like... it's jarring at first, but it kind of the whole thing makes you uneasy.
Like, it's Kubrick. His directing is always going to be very weird and jarring,
and it still pulls you into the movie. I mean, just because some of his stuff is jarring, and it's supposed to jar you, you're supposed to be like, "Oh, wait a minute, wait, what?"
Yeah, that's the reaction you're supposed to get out of this film.
Exactly, and What do you think about? So, we were talking about Stanley Kubrick. Is there anything, any other thoughts you have on this movie as far as, was this what you were expecting when you were going to this film? Because this is totally not what I was expecting.
I mean, even as much as I've heard about this film over the entire course of my lifetime, I had no idea what to expect.
Also, I have another question for you. Why does he say, "Here's Johnny"?
I don't know.
His name's Jack. Maybe it's like you said during the movie. Maybe it's reference to something else.
Maybe we should have looked that.
But I mean, I was like doing a kind of speculation that maybe his name was Johnny in his past life or whatever.
I think I've heard that line was improvised.
Oh, okay. So it's just Jack Nicholson being Jack Nicholson.
Right.
Okay. That makes a lot more sense. And, like we said with his facial expressions and stuff, he does amazing job with this movie. I'm surprised that he wasn't nominated for a Best Actor award in anything.
Yeah. The only other award that this film's been nominated for was a Saturn Award again in 2012 for Best DVD.
That's crazy to think about. And again, the cool thing about doing this podcast, you go back and see these films that, have gained a cult following, or maybe they were successful right off the bat, and you get to see that in the lens of, for the first time for all these movies, for us at least, the lens of 2017 now. Right. You have all these advances. What does this look like in today's? I mean, I still liked it. What were your final thoughts on the movie? Final thoughts and your score on this?
Score. I think I'm going to go with a 4.5 out of 5. I'm not sure where I'm taking away credit from it.
It's hard to judge this movie. It is.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not perfect, but it's close. I'm just not sure. I need some more time to think about it before I really know why I don't think it's perfect. But I still love the movie.
I want to ask you something. We said we were uneasy, and this is a horror film. So
yeah.
We said we were uneasy, but were you ever really scared ever in this movie? Because I didn't feel that feeling at all. I was always uneasy.
I mean, I can't particularly say I was scared. The few times that the twins showed up were unsettling. Yeah. Because they were just not fun to look at.
There's a lot of weird things in this, weird imagery in this movie.
Right. And
a lot of weird imagery.
That woman, the nude woman that he starts
that was so weird.
Making out with, and then we find out, I guess that was the mother that was...
Yeah, it was so weird. The whole movie is so weird.
That was a weird image. Scary image, I would say.
Yeah.
But it was definitely unsettling the entire time.
Very unsettling. And I think... So, I'm actually going to give this a 4.5 out of 5 as well. Just because, like you, I don't know where I'm taking... I'm probably taking off of those fades. Just those fades. They bother me.
Maybe those fades or even the... Okay, no. So, I'll say that my 0.5
some of the supporting acting,
right.
Some of the editing, kind of
a little bit on Shelley Duvall's performance, a little bit on the fact that the deaths were a bit anticlimactic.
Yeah, the whole thing was kind of, but see, it's weird because you can talk yourself into saying, "Oh, this is a bad movie," but you can also talk yourself into saying, "This is a great movie."
Except it's not a bad movie.
It's not a bad movie, and I think it's a really good movie, and it did its job. It made you feel uneasy, and I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. It didn't have an amazing payoff, but
no. And maybe that was something they were used to in that time.
Maybe, yeah. It's again 2017.
Especially with horror films nowadays, we're used to the bloodiest, most violent kill happening right at the end, and you're just like, what?
There was only one in this whole movie. There was only one kill the entire time, and it happened right at the end.
Yeah,
and it wasn't
like 5 minutes before the movie ended.
Yeah, and then they both got away, and it was fine.
Yeah. Oh, the runtime is another thing to take off a little.
No, I'm gonna go 4.5.
I'm still sticking with a 4.5. There was, I think, maybe 20 minutes or so.
And if you've never seen The Shining, you need to see it because it's totally, it's 100%. I would say not what you're expecting it to be.
Not at all.
It's super weird in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, we both had our own preconceived notions. And some just based off of stuff that we had heard about the film. Yeah,
my dad kind of warned me. It was he was like, it's weird, dude.
Yeah,
it's really weird, but I liked it. I liked it.
Kubrick
4.5 out of 5 for both of
Kubrick
us.
directing a horror film. I mean, that screams weird.
Yeah, so we got 4.5 out of 5 for both of us. And then, so moving on from The Shining, next week, our finale, we go back to the granddaddy of them all, Psycho. And, this movie's got like probably the most famous horror scene in all of horror films, the shower scene. And I think if you didn't know, that comes from Psycho.
Yeah, and there's an entire documentary that I'm not sure if it's out quite yet. It played at the festival that I went to last month. It's called 7852. And it's basically about the shower scene in Psycho. And an entire documentary about one scene.
So I know so much about, I know that scene. I've watched that scene in its entirety. I don't know anything about the rest of the film. I know nothing.
No, I mean, I know maybe one line from the film. I've not seen any clips from it. Other than the clip of Norman Bates kind of looking up.
I've never even seen
smiling,
that.
creepy.
I probably have seen that, but I just didn't know it was from Psycho. But I've seen the shower scene, and I think everyone ever has seen the shower scene or some form of parody of the shower scene or something.
And I'm sure most people have heard the line, "A boy's best friend is his mother."
Yeah.
Which comes from Psycho.
Yeah. I didn't know that. Interesting. So what is your like you said, you don't know much about it, but what is your thoughts going into watching Psycho?
Well, I'm not expecting anything too terribly bloody outside of the shower scene.
And even then, it's mostly water.
Right. But I'm expecting it to just, like The Shining again, to be kind of uneasy and unsettling.
I've never seen a black and white horror film.
I don't think I have either. No, I've seen a couple of them, but not from decades ago. I've seen a couple that are
recent,
newer films that are black and white.
Like a choice for them.
Right.
Do you know when Psycho came out?
1960.
60. Ooh, well, I don't know. I don't know why I was thinking 40.
I don't know.
It's not even that old. It's 1960. It's still pretty old.
It's still 20 years older than The Shining.
Yeah, which is crazy. But I mean, I'm thinking going into it. I don't really know what to expect. I know to expect the shower scene. It's going to happen at some point. I don't know when it's going to happen. It's beginning, end, middle. I don't know. But anyways, Kevin.
Thankfully, we're dealing with a much shorter runtime, too.
What is it?
I think it's about 106 minutes.
Oh, back to the hour and a half. Woo!
Thank goodness.
Or hour and 45 minutes, I guess. But, all right, Kevin, I think we're done here. Where can they find you?
You can find my full-length written reviews over on kevwatchthefilm.com. The most recent review I've put up is from Only the Brave, which came out on October 20th. And since my readers apparently hate me, I'll have a review up for The Snowman in the next couple of days as well. And then all my social links are on there. You can find me on Twitter and Stardust at KevWatchTheFilm and on Letterboxd at KevWatchesFilms.
And you can follow the show on Twitter at OldSkoolMovieSK. Kevin, I think that's it.
Go watch movies.
Go watch movies.